realized, wow, we've had a huge disconnect between what should be food and what is moral and kind and right to do. And you have just this terrible feeling of all the years that you've done things the wrong way, but then also enlightenment. And, it's better late than never, as they say.
As a vegan, do you ever feel like you're living in a parallel universe, aware of things that many others don't even seem to notice, let alone acknowledge? I'm Chrissy Benson, host of the Vegan Posse podcast. We talk with vegans from around the globe who, like you, are living lives of integrity and compassion with an eye toward justice. Through their personal stories, you'll come to see that you're not an outlier. In fact, you're part of an entire posse of individuals who aren't just keeping the peace, they're creating it through their food choices and beyond. You won't be saddling up, but you're in for the ride of your life. Welcome to the Vegan Posse. Hey Posse, I'm Chrissy Benson, host of the Vegan Posse. It's getting to be that time of year, and if you're looking to get an early start on holiday gifts, make sure to grab some copies of everyone's favorite vegan novel, Marrying Myself, by yours truly, Christine Melanie Benson. It's set in Boston and features a vegan protagonist and a revolutionary self-love message, and it was named on the Veg News magazine hit list. You can find out all about it at my website, ChristineMelanieBenson.com. Some other info you need to know is that we've got a new monthly episode called Posse Talk with Jen Howk, where Dr. Jen Howk and I will be shooting the breeze about life, love, relationships, veganism, and anything else on our mind. And we'll be taking your questions, which you can submit in advance to veganposse.email@gmail.com. And now for this week's episode. What better way to kick off the fall season than by getting cozy with Tami Kramer, host of the phenomenal cooking show and blog Nutmeg Notebook. I've often said that as fabulous as we vegans are at preaching, arguably the most effective way to carry the vegan message is by getting people cooking and eating delicious vegan food and loving it. And that's exactly what Tami is doing. Tami Kramer has been following a whole food, plant-based lifestyle since 2013. Through dietary changes, she was able to lower her LDL cholesterol and avoid taking statins. She was also able to achieve a healthy weight and, more importantly, has been maintaining her 50-pound weight loss since 2015. On her blog and YouTube channel, Nutmeg Notebook, Tami and her husband, Tom, share their love of a healthy, whole food, plant exclusive lifestyle. Tami's recipes are all salt, oil, and sugar-free. She's famous for her beautiful chopped salads and her weekly batch prep strategy. To help viewers work smarter, not harder in the kitchen, she shares her proven tips, recipes, and kitchen shortcuts to make this lifestyle easier and more fun. And you can get a discount on Nutmeg Notebook cooking classes by using the code NUTMEG30 for a 30% discount. More than anything, though, I think you'll enjoy hearing about the vegan journey of Tami, Tom, and the rest of their family and how Nutmeg Notebook came to be. So enjoy this conversation with Tami Kramer. Tami, welcome to the Vegan Posse. Are you ready for the ride of your life?
Absolutely. Let's get going.
Right on. So I love to take it back to the beginning. You're obviously doing a lot of cool things in the cooking world and nutrition education, but I really love to hear people's, childhood experience with food. So can you talk a little about where you're from and whether you ever thought about the animals in our food system growing up?
Okay, sure. Well, I'm from the Midwest. I grew up in Nebraska, and I had a dad and three brothers that were hunters and fishermen. And my grandparents lived on a farm, and they had cows and chickens and horses and occasionally a pig. And quite frankly, I never made the connection between, having them, loving those animals, and then eating them. I think I was just so socialized to the fact that this is how we eat, this is where our food comes from, this is how we do it, that I just never, and we had dogs and cats for pets, you know, and I just never made that connection. And so it wasn't until about 2012 when I went in for my yearly physical, and my LDL cholesterol, which is the bad cholesterol, had been going up. And my doctor said, you know, if this trend continues, then we're going to have to put you on a statin. Well, my parents are both on statins at that time. And I said, yeah, I'm not going to do that. And he said, well, there isn't anything you can do. It's genetic. Your parents are on statins. You're going to be on a statin. And that's just how it is. And it really made me mad. So,
How come? Like, why didn't you want to go on a statin?
well, because my parents have a lot of side effects to the statins, arm aches, and all kinds of, um, um, just terrible side effects to it. And so I went home and Googled everything, trying to find out, what can you do to lower your cholesterol? And I was eating what I thought was a healthy diet at the time. I ate very little red meat. I was eating mostly chicken, low fat dairy, blah, blah, blah. I had bought into all those myths. But I was also a yo-yo dieter, and I had yo-yo dieted for almost 4 decades. I was great at losing the weight, but I wasn't great at keeping the weight off. So I'd always regain the weight and then, go on the next fad diet. And so, so when I Googled everything, it led me to Dr. Joel Furman. And I happened to catch one of his presentations on the PBS channel, his Food for Life program. And I thought, wow, this makes a lot of sense. But I was planning our daughter's wedding at the time. And I thought, I'm going to wait till after the wedding. This would be a really bad time to shake up the whole system here. And so I did wait until 2013, but I did buy his book and was reading his book. And then I saw the Forks Over Knives video. So my entrance into this veganism came through a desire to improve my own health. And I was successful. I lowered my LDL cholesterol, it was like 149. I got it down to 99, and things were going really well. And then someone invited me to attend a vegan society meeting. We live close to Sacramento here in California, Northern California, and we have a very active vegan society here run by my friend, who's now my friend, Linda Middlesworth. And so the first meeting we went to, she said to my husband and I, are you here for your health or for the animals? And I said, oh, I'm here for my health. And she said, well, that's okay. We're happy to have you. and she brought in a lot of speakers to talk about health, because she's not only an advocate for the animals, but she's also an advocate for those who care about the animals to take good care of themselves so they have good health, so they'll be around long enough to help the animals. And so after attending a few of her lectures and her speakers talking about health, she asked us if we would come to a viewing that she was doing of a documentary about the animals. And so we said, yeah, we'll do that. And that was eye-opening. Then we realized...
What was the documentary? Do you remember?
I can't remember which one. We've seen so many
yeah.
of them. It could have been cow conspiracy. I'm not sure which one. We saw so many that she provided for us. But then we realized, wow, we've had a huge disconnect between what should be food and what is moral and kind and right to do. And then you have just this terrible feeling of all the years that you've done things the wrong way, but then also enlightenment. And, it's better late than never, as they say. And so that was really life-changing for us, just to make the connection and realize that, not only what we were doing was excellent for our health, but also for the environment, and then, saving the animals as well. So that's how I got started. And then Linda asked me if I would, she found out that I like to cook. And then she asked
Yeah,
me
that's
if I
always
would be,
dangerous when people find out you like to cook. You never know what's coming.
right. Yeah. And then she was like, could you teach some cooking classes? She's like, people want me to. She said, I just don't have time, but you have the skills and the right personality.
Tell
And so
me,
my
let's
husband,
let's backtrack a little bit if you don't mind. Like what was your interest in cooking and your backgrounds with, being a chef?
yeah. So yeah, I started cooking when I was 10 years old. My mom had a nighttime job. And so I actually cooked for my dad and my three brothers starting when I was
Wow.
10.
Are you the
Yeah, my
oldest in your family, or is it just that
I'm
you were a
not,
girl?
I'm not, but I'm the oldest. I'm the only girl, and so I have a brother who's 2 years older. And growing up back in the 50s and the 60s, that cooking was women's work. So
Sure.
I was chosen to be the cook for everyone, and I loved cooking. My mom loved cooking. My grandmother loved cooking, and they made a lot of stuff from scratch. They would make their own bread and dinner rolls and things of that nature. But it was the standard American diet, Midwestern meat and potatoes kind of thing. And so I just grew up learning how to cook and loving to cook. And then when I got married, my husband wasn't a cook, and so I did all of the cooking for us. And then once we had children, I was a stay-at-home mom, and so we had home cooked meals every day, 3 times a day. And so I've just always loved cooking, and I was interested in health. And before I adopted the plant-based lifestyle, I had already started a food blog, just sharing what I thought at the time was healthy meals. And so I already had that in place. And of course, once I adopted a whole food plant based lifestyle, I lost like 80% of my audience.
I was going to
Um,
ask you exactly that. What was it like for you in terms of shifting the food blog? Did you consider keeping your standard American diet food blog just for business purposes?
I wasn't doing it so much for business because we hadn't monetized it or anything. I was just doing it kind of as a fun hobby and wanted to share what I thought was healthy food with other people. And, because I was like, I had already figured out, that we needed to cut out sugar and that we needed to cut out foods that had preservatives, and we were going more whole food and organic and that kind of thing, but still having some meat and fish in our diet. So I did keep those recipes up for a while. I started sharing what I was doing, and I shared what the switch made for me for my cholesterol. And I was sharing the recipes, and and some people were using them and enjoying them. And I thought, well, if I keep those recipes up, then when they come to the blog, they'll see what I'm doing now, and maybe they'll be encouraged to dip their toes in it and at least try some of the vegan, oil-free, healthy recipes that I'm having success with and enjoying, because they knew I was a foodie. But since there's only about, I think it's at 6% of the population eats a vegan diet, and so that's a
If
very
that,
small
I'm
percentage.
skeptic. I don't even think it's that high, but
Yeah, it's very small. And so, the blog just wasn't doing that great compared to how it was when I had the standard American diet. But then about 3 years into it, after I had learned all about advocating for the animals, and I just decided I didn't want to contribute to the abuse of animals by having those recipes on my blog anymore. So I made an announcement that I was going to be removing all of those recipes because I didn't feel like it was in anyone's best interest to eat those. And and I felt so
was
much
that was
better.
that hard for was that hard for you to do? Were you nervous about making that announcement, kind of making it official that you are now an ethical, compassionate, driven vegan?
Um, I really wasn't, no, I wasn't nervous about it because I felt like it was the right thing to do. And I felt like I needed to take that stand. And by having all of those recipes on the blog, that was endorsing and advocating people continuing to eat animals and animal products. So no, I had no qualms about it at all. And a lot of people have contacted me. I mean, that was back in, that was probably about 2015, 2016 when I took the recipes off, and people still contact me and ask me, there was a recipe that I used to make, blah, blah, blah. And I just say, I'm sorry. Because I won't, even if I know where they could find it, I won't give it to them because I just don't feel like it's the right thing to do anymore.
Yeah. Oh, that makes so much sense. That's just very, very touching story. And you said you lost quite a few people. Like, did that
Oh,
hurt?
yeah.
Was that frustrating to you, or did it make you angry?
No, not at all. No, not angry. I totally understood because, once you know better, you can do better. But if you don't know better, then you don't know that you need to make a change. And it was sometime around maybe 2015, 2016, I think. I was friends with Chef AJ because I had done one of her weight loss programs. And she said, you should start a YouTube channel. And she said, because you could really make a difference and you could really help people. And so that's when my husband and I then started our YouTube channel. And we can reach so many people through YouTube because, they don't necessarily have to be looking for something vegan or whole food plant based. They might just stumble upon us and watch our videos. And so yeah, we've just never looked back. Actually, we just kept moving forward and do what we do. And I have a friend who had said to me that once we know this information, we have an obligation to pass it forward because people passed the information on to us, and which was true. And so he really encouraged me to keep doing the blog and to do the YouTube channel, just because then that's one more resource for people, one more person speaking out to help people not only improve their lives, but also save the animals. So yeah, so no, we've never looked back. And I'm just going to say that the interesting thing was, we soon realized, as excited as we were about this lifestyle, that not everybody wanted to hear about it. And so we just kind of played it really low key with our friends and our family and our two children. Tom and I have two children, and they were in college at the time. And so they started researching what we were doing, and they both decided to adopt a whole food plant-based lifestyle as well. And so our three grandchildren have been
Wow.
vegan. Yeah, isn't that
That's
exciting?
amazing. That's amazing. Yeah, I mean, I hope you realize that you're very fortunate in that regard, because I know so many people whose families still just don't want to hear it. Or, my own family. I do have a brother who's vegan, and I am so grateful for that. But the rest of my family, they have made some changes. In fact, Eat to Live by Dr. Joel Fuhrman was one of the first books that my dad read that actually started influencing him a little bit in the vegan direction. But that's beautiful. And I'm curious, you've been married a long time to your husband, Tom. Who did you meet in high school? Is that where you met? Or was it,
It
when
was
did you
after. It
guys
was
meet?
after. Yeah, it was after that. I think we met in 1977. We got married in 1979. So yeah, we've been married for 45 years. And of course, he grew up being meat and potatoes, um, living in Nebraska. And so when I decided that this was something that I wanted to do, we sat down and talked about it. And I asked him if he would watch the Forks Over Knives documentary with me, and I had already previewed it. I'd already seen it, and his family had a history of heart disease. His dad had three different types of cancer, and eventually
Mhm.
cancer did take his dad's life. And so once I learned about the correlation between how we eat and sickness and illness, then I knew, oh, wow, he really needs to eat this way because of his genetics. And so he said at first, he didn't tell me that day, but that day he was like, I'll support you however I can. Just please don't tell me that I can't eat meat. And I said, well, I just want you to know that I'm no longer going to cook meat. And I didn't even know about veganism at that point, but I just knew for me to be successful, I needed to just concentrate on making whole food, plant-based food. And I said, but if you want to throw something on the barbecue or something, then you can just use what I'm having as your side dishes. And so we did that for quite some time. He was still working. He's retired now, but he was still working. And when he would travel, he would eat meat and have, all the naughty things that he wasn't getting at home. And eventually, because he's not a cook, he got tired of, having to make himself something. And so he just started eating my food when he was at home. And then he discovered that when he was traveling, if he had animal products, they didn't agree with him anymore. They would make him feel kind of sick. And so then he was like, oh, you have to help me. How am I going to eat healthy when I'm on the road? And so, I would batch prep food for him. We'd send it off with him in a cooler. He would go to Whole Foods and get their salad bar, or find a restaurant that had a salad bar, or a healthy vegan restaurant where he could get something. And so I ended up losing almost 50 pounds. He ended up losing 30. And, both he improved his blood glucose because it was getting kind of borderline high, and also improved his cholesterol, and his migraines went away, his knee pain. We like to hike. He was having to wear knee braces when we were hiking. He no longer has to wear his knee braces. I mean, it's just phenomenal.
Wow. Yeah.
All the health benefits that you get from this lifestyle. So then, he was completely sold on it as well. And then when he retired, then he was like, I could help you with, if you want to make more videos and do that kind of thing. And so, it's been a nice thing to be able to do this together for us.
Yeah. So tell us about Nutmeg Notebook. First of all, I love the name. I love alliteration, and the name is just adorable. But how did you come up with that name for your cooking show and YouTube channel?
Yeah, so we were just brainstorming with our daughter, and she's an English teacher. And so she said, well, let's make a list, because so many names that we would think of were already
We're
taken, because
taken.
then you
Yeah.
Google them and you find out were already taken. And so she said, well, let's just make a list of all the different, like, kind of like food related things that you like, and anything that has to do with your cooking, and see if any of those things go together. And at that time, I had recently discovered fresh nutmeg, that you could buy the little nutmegs and a nutmeg grinder and grind them. And I've always loved to bake, and I've always loved nutmeg. And I just was like blown away at how more delicious fresh nutmeg was. And then the notebooks came in because my grandmother loved to copy recipes, and she would do it in spiral bound notebooks. And she used to listen to, it was a radio show. It was out of Shenandoah, Iowa, and it was called Kitchen Clatter. And so while she would be listening to it, the two ladies, it was two sisters, would be talking about different recipes, and they would read off the recipes, and my grandmother would write them in a notebook. And so when I got married, I started my own notebooks, and would handwrite recipes in the notebook. So that's kind of where it came from, nutmeg notebook. And we can't even, Tom and Katie and I, we can't remember who came up with that, who actually put it together. But we thought that is so cute. I know it doesn't denote anything about being vegan or whole food, plant-based, or what have you, but it's what we decided to go with.
It's super cute, and in a sense it does, because to be fair, nutmeg is not the first food that comes to mind when we think vegan, but I think it helps imply that a lot of the foods in our regular repertoire are already vegan and plant-based. So, it doesn't have to be this foreign territory of, strange vegan foods, that suddenly we're ingesting.
Right.
It can be something as cozy and like warm and, comforting as nutmeg and baking. So I love that. That's
Yeah,
such a cute story.
absolutely. Yeah, so we have our YouTube channel. And of course, during the pandemic, we did a lot of live sessions because people were really craving having that interaction and a sense
Mm.
of community. And so, every week we would go live and let people ask us questions and that kind of thing. And now we've transformed more into doing, I do grocery hauls. So like when we go to Costco or Whole Foods or Trader Joe's or wherever, whatever, we'll come home and before we put everything away, we'll show everybody what we bought, where we, give them ideas on how they can use it. Because so many people, when they first start a vegan or a whole food plant-based lifestyle, perhaps they have eaten out. They haven't been cooking at home. They've relied on convenience items, processed foods. And so they're really learning and getting an education on how to cook and how do you make this sustainable and easy without spending all of your time in the kitchen. And so we'd like to do a lot of educational type videos. I do kitchen hack videos and tips on how to save money and eat plant-based, which, oh my gosh, it's so much cheaper to eat plant-based than it is to eat the standard American diet. And people just don't realize that. So we do a lot of education about that. On the blog, I share recipes. I'm a recipe developer. And so I love to create new recipes and share those with everyone. And then on Facebook and Instagram, also Nutmeg Notebook is my account there. I share a lot of what we eat. And so I'll show my salads or, a soup that I made or different things like that, just to help people, give people ideas. Because when I first adopted this lifestyle, I was in my 50s and I had no idea what does a meal look like that doesn't start with an animal product. Because I used to pick the animal product and build my meal around it.
Mm.
And so, it took a while to grasp, what does a vegan, whole food, plant-based meal look like? And so I really enjoy sharing those because I try to share everything that I wished I had known when I first started, because it would have made it so much easier, because I spent so much time in the kitchen and on the internet looking up recipes and trying to recreate the things that we used to eat.
Mm-hmm.
And then, as time evolved, then we started eating more simple, easy meals. It doesn't have to be complicated. And like you said, people are already eating a lot of vegan meals. They just don't realize that they're
Yeah.
vegan. That label, vegan, conjures up something like cardboard or something for them, or just, lettuce. And there's just so much more to it. And we eat so much ethnic food now because ethnic food is so easy to veganize. Indian food and Mexican food. And we just, eat so much more variety now than we ever used to when we were following the standard American diet.
So it sounds like you were really focused on eating healthy vegan from the very start. You immediately discovered the whole food plant-based approach. How was it making that shift? Particularly with things like oil and the other ingredients that we tend to think of as just integral to creating delicious food.
Yeah, so we eat what's called SOS free, which stands for
Oh,
salt,
yeah.
oil, and sugar. And so, but not that we don't have flavor, because we do. So I think the easiest thing was really giving up the oil, because you can water saute things, you can still oven roast and maybe use aquafaba, the liquid from cooked garbanzo beans, to add moisture so that your vegetables don't dry out. With the invention of the air fryer, oh my goodness, oil-free French fries and all kinds of yummy, crispy things can be made in the air fryer. So yeah, I did adopt that pretty much from the get-go. And I think the hardest thing was probably giving up salt. Because that was a little, salt is such a flavor enhancer. So that took a little bit of time to figure that out. And it's just, using more spices, using lemon or lime juice, because the salt taste buds reside close to the sour taste buds. So if you have a little bit of lime or lemon and that little bit of sour, it kind of tricks your taste buds into thinking that it's salty. And then celery has natural sodium in it, as well as a lot of the dark leafy greens. And so if you include those in soups, it gives you that salty flavor, and just enhancing with dried herbs or fresh herbs makes a difference. And then I was a baker before. I loved to bake. Whenever we went to a potluck or anything, I was always asked to make desserts and that kind of thing. And so I had to, learn how to make healthy desserts. And so I use a lot of fruit, bananas and dates and raisins and dried apricots and things like that, just to naturally sweeten the desserts. And also, once you give up the sugar, oh my gosh, you really don't miss it, because your taste buds change. There's a period of what they call neuroadaptation. And so when you give up the oil, the sugar, and the salt, it takes anywhere from 30 to 90 days for your taste buds to change. But once they do, and you don't believe in the beginning that they're going to, but they do, then you can really taste how delicious just natural food is. You can taste the sweetness in a carrot and a cucumber, and strawberries become like candy, and sometimes grapes are too sweet because they have a natural high sugar content. And then you can just really learn to enjoy food in the way that we were meant to eat it. And I make all kinds of delicious treats. I have 3 grandchildren who love ice cream, and I make them a chocolate ice cream using bananas and roasted Japanese sweet potatoes and raw cacao powder and dates, and they love it. They've never had like dairy ice cream, but they absolutely love this and look forward to it. And it's so healthy they could have it for breakfast if they wanted to.
That sounds like a really good life for a kid.
Right.
And what about your parents? Did they ever shift? Are they still on the fence? No.
Yeah. Well, my dad has passed away, but when they would come visit, my mom would say, I would say, I'll buy anything that you want. I don't cook meat anymore, but if you want to cook it, you can. And she always says, no, I'll just eat whatever you're having. And I just recently spent a week with her, and we went on a road trip, and my son went with me as well. And sometimes when we ate in a restaurant that had vegan options as well as standard American diet options, sometimes she chose to eat the same thing, the vegan option that we were having, because, she could see that the food we were eating was really healthy and delicious. And so when I go there, she always says, you just do the cooking. And she loves my salads. And when my dad was still alive, he loved my salads as well. And she was like, he will only eat your salads. He won't eat salads for anyone else, So no, I didn't really have a good influence on them. However, my mom, the last time my mom came, she came in May, and I started making her green smoothies every day, and she has continued to do that. And so she bought a high-powered blender, and she's been making smoothies. And then one of my brothers that comes over, he likes it, so she'll make a double batch when he comes over. And so I guess in a way, there's a little bit of healthy eating that has trickled down to them. So,
right. What's in your green smoothie?
It's a state of mind for people. They think, oh, I could never eat that way. I've had doctors tell me I could never eat the way that you eat. And I'm like, sure you could. Sure you could. It is hard to wrap your brain around it in the beginning. I'll give you that.
I know the feeling. It's funny because
I'm sorry, Chrissy, can you repeat it? I couldn't hear it.
I was just saying it is funny to hear that response a lot, because one time when I was at Vegan Summerfest, I heard one of the speakers there. She suggested asking people this question when they say something like, I could never eat that way. She suggested asking them, have you ever had a vegan meal that you enjoyed and where you felt satisfied after? And most people will say, well, yeah, one time I went to a restaurant, or one time my friend cooked me a meal and it was good. And, she, she then would tell these people, you can do that all the time. There's no reason that experience can't be replicated. Like if you did it for one meal, you can do it for a lot of meals. But it is funny, the mindset, like you mentioned. And I know it was the same for me as well. It felt really hard and it felt really restrictive and deprivational in the beginning. And I remember for a brief moment wavering in my conviction and thinking, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this. And then, to my great surprise and delight, a whole new world of food opened up, and flavors, and a learning and spirituality, even though I wasn't really seeking it. It was just very, very interesting for me. I describe it as I felt like I was discovering love as a principle of physics. I had gone vegan for the animals in my case, but I'd also had what I considered a separate interest in health and nutrition. And then come to find out that not only can you survive on a vegan diet, but it's actually the optimal diet for humans if you do it correctly. And it's better for the planet, and it's better for starving children in Africa and the Philippines. And so to discover that it just had so many positive ripple effects. And in fact, the only ripple effects were positive. It was very, very profound for me. But you really hit the ground running with Nutmeg Notebook. I mean, did you expect it to take off in the way that it has? And did you have this vision for it when you started out?
We really didn't. We just wanted to share and just pass the information forward and try to help people be successful at adopting this lifestyle, because I do know a lot of people start it and then they feel like it's too hard, and so they give up. And they might return to it again when their health starts to um, get worse again. They'll move back to it. So, we didn't have any idea where it was going to go or how it was going to grow or what, but we've been very pleased with it. We get emails from people all the time, telling us their stories, their journey, and how adopting this lifestyle has changed their life, saved their lives, reversed their heart disease, their type 2 diabetes. I mean, just so many wonderful stories. It's great to be a part of that and to be a part of the movement. And certainly we've seen since 2013 so much change in the food culture. Plant-based is so much more mainstream now than it was in 2013. I mean, on our road trip in Nebraska, Arkansas, Missouri, we were able to find vegan food everywhere we went. And, I hear from people all the time telling me, oh, it's almost impossible to eat this way where I live. And I don't think that's true anymore. We found there was usually in every restaurant a vegan option. And what was really popular in the Midwest were, they called it vegan plates. And
Huh.
they gave you an option. They had like 5 or 6 different vegetables that you could choose, and then there would be some starch included. So that was a repeat many places that we went. And sometimes I would just order a baked potato and a side of, could you make me steamed broccoli?
Yeah. Yeah.
And do you have salsa that I can put on my potato?
Right.
And I love a baked potato. And I love
Same.
broccoli. So I was
Yes.
perfectly happy to have a great big baked
Exactly.
potato with salsa and broccoli. So, I think just, yeah. So I just think there's so many more options now. And people say, oh, well, that's because you live in California. Well, you know what? I think it's true wherever you go. Plus, you just have to ask.
Yeah.
That's a big thing. We went into it was a mom and pop little Mexican restaurant in Arkansas. And I told the owner, I'm vegan and I don't eat any animal products, no meat, no cheese, da da da. And she said, I don't either. She said, friend, I've got you covered.
Ah.
And she made me the most delicious veggie tacos with homemade corn tortillas and potatoes and onions and peppers and mushrooms. And I mean, just this huge plate of food for me and homemade salsa. It was amazing. And so, and when we've traveled, we go on cruises, we travel internationally, and we have always been able to make it work, eating this way. And when we go into restaurants, I just ask a lot of questions.
Mhm.
If you don't see a vegan option, you see that they have salad, you see that they make, maybe they make some kind of a stir fry, so they have the vegetables. You just ask them,
Yeah.
can you make me something?
Yeah.
And in all the years, we've only gone into one restaurant that couldn't accommodate us. And that's because it was more of like a bar, bistro kind of place. And the waitress admitted to me that they didn't actually make anything from scratch. They bought everything like frozen and then just heated things up. But that, over 11 years, one time, we left a restaurant because they couldn't accommodate our lifestyle.
Amazing, amazing. And I've had the same experience. In fact, I wrote a new satire story about um, a nonchalant Nashville vegan makes plant-based living look like a breeze. And in the story, all his friends always try to stump him by taking him to, a steakhouse or a pizza place or something. And, at the steakhouse, like you said, he just orders, a couple of baked potatoes, side of broccoli, and some salsa and some mustard. And yeah, I remember one time, similar to your experience at the Mexican place, going somewhere where, again, there was nothing explicitly vegan on the menu, but I put together a couple of different things and ordered them, and it came. And everybody at the table was looking at me saying, "Where was that on the menu? That looks good. I wish I'd gotten that." So I do think it's true. You get more resourceful. There are more vegan options just in general, and I love seeing the word vegan on a menu. I love that you found places in the Midwest that called it a vegan plate. I love that. But even when they don't use the word vegan, there are always so many options, just generally speaking. I think we become
Yeah,
more
there really is.
resourceful. Yeah. Yeah, so I'm
Yeah.
just very impressed. I mean, because you went from being a stay-at-home mom to being a YouTube celebrity. And I know it didn't happen overnight, but was that a shift for you? Did that involve some, just discomfort or some growing pains, or were you just really engaged in the cooking aspect and the idea of bringing this message to people?
The interesting thing is that my husband is an extrovert and I am an introvert. But I'm able to compensate for it. And of course, doing YouTube videos, I'm just talking to the camera. And so, that's a lot less intimidating than speaking to a group. Although I have done demonstrations at some of the plant-based conferences, and I've gotten more comfortable with it over time. And then just being recognized when we're out is also, something new to get used to. So if we're shopping at Costco or Whole Foods, or we're eating in a local vegan restaurant, invariably, somebody will recognize us and come up and introduce themselves. And we love that. At first it felt a little awkward and embarrassing. But now I love it because, doing what we do, just like you, doing videos and podcasts, you're giving and speaking, and everybody feels like they know you. You become one of their friends. You become a part of their life. And so for us to be able to actually meet people in person is just a really big thrill for us, because then we can put a face with a name with a comment on Facebook or Instagram or on our YouTube channel. So we, over time, I've gotten more comfortable with it. And I really enjoy it now. I really enjoy getting to meet people and hearing their stories and finding out that they're using my recipes and their grandkids love them and their son eats it and takes something to school that I developed. And, that makes me just so happy, because then we realize that the work that we're doing is really affecting people's lives on a daily basis.
That's beautiful. And yeah, you can tell that you enjoy it. You can tell that it's not work to you, which is what makes it fun for everybody. How has it been, doing this work with your husband, with Tom? Because, you went from, again, being a stay-at-home mom where he had his career, he went off to the office, and now you're working together. How has that been?
Yeah, so that's been an interesting role reversal for us at one of the conferences that we went to, and he attends with me when I'm asked to come and speak or do a cooking demonstration. And he was used to, in business, and I would attend conferences with him, and it would be Tom Kramer and Mrs. Kramer for the reserved seating. And then we went to one conference, and so it said Tami Kramer, and then for his seat it said Tammy's husband. and he got a big chuckle out of that. He said, "Oh wow, this is a real turn of events here. I'm Tammy's husband now." And so working together is great. We make a really good team because he loves all of the technical aspects. So he takes, he edits all of our videos and adds music to them. And he figures out, how to set everything up and, cameras and lights and microphones and all that. So he loves that aspect of it. And, eventually I was even able to get him to come on camera with me to do some of our YouTube videos, because we would hear a lot from women who, generally it's the women, it seems, that decide to adopt this lifestyle. And then they are trying to bring their husbands on board. And so we would hear from women and they would say, could your husband share what he eats in a day? Because if he did, then I could show that to my husband, and then my husband might decide to try it. And so, eventually then he got comfortable being on camera with me, and that had a really big impact on the male viewers that we have, the husbands of the female viewers. They told us that, then their husbands were willing to watch because, Tom was going to be on there too. And, so it's been really good. We make a really good team. We work well together. And, we've been best friends since we started dating in 1977.
Aww.
And our kids used to tease us a lot when they were growing up, and they would be like, "You two are joined at the hip." And we said, "Well, isn't that great? Aren't you lucky? You have parents that actually like being together. You're so lucky." So it's been great.
Yeah.
And now I'm working on a children's cookbook with my daughter, because she's been cooking for her 3 children for 8 years. She has twins that are just turned 6, and her oldest is 8. And so we're actually working on a cookbook for kids meals. And because we've had to learn how to cook to appeal to the little people in our lives. And so that's really fun as well, to have that collaboration going on with her.
That's amazing. Yeah. So what are some of the tips that you've discovered or that you recommend for people cooking for kids?
I get a lot of requests for it from parents who have young children who've adopted this lifestyle, and also from a lot of grandparents who watch their grandchildren, and they want to be able to feed their grandchildren healthy vegan food. And so I get a lot of requests from people like, "Can you give me lunch ideas? What would you put in a lunchbox? I have to make lunch for my grandkids. What would you put in the lunchbox?" That kind of thing. I think there's a lot of grandparent involvement in raising children these days. And so, and plus, like when the holidays come around and that kind of thing, that was the hard part that first year for every holiday, because I felt like the expectation from my family was going to be to have all of the traditional foods that we had, but I knew that I no longer wanted to make those. And so, that took a lot of thought, a lot of testing recipes, trying to figure
Mm.
out what we have that would feel like it was special and a celebration, but with new traditions, and which we have now. 11 years later, we have those
Ah,
things, which is really nice. We just have, we still have a delicious meal. Sometimes we get together with our son-in-law's family, and, they eat the standard American diet, but they go out of their way to make something vegan for us. And of course, we always take lots of vegan food, and they always want to taste all of our food. And they love it. And sometimes they ask for the recipes because it's so delicious, you know. So that's really fun as well. And, we have all the traditional things that we make for the grandkids that they look forward to. So, I mean, it's so doable. It's just daunting in the beginning, I think, but then it's just so doable.
right. And how much are the kids absorbing about the way that they're eating? Do they realize that it's very different from the way that a lot of their friends are eating?
They do because they don't have any friends that eat like them. Our daughter, she was a school teacher, so she's actually homeschooling them because she wanted them to be bilingual. So she's teaching them both Spanish and English. And so the only way she could do that was to homeschool them, so that she could, make sure they were fluent in Spanish, because she was also a Spanish teacher as well as an English teacher. Her husband is from Honduras. And so when they get together, they have play groups. They have, groups that they get together with called co-ops for their homeschooling. And, none of those kids eat the way that they do, but all of their friends' mothers are very good about making vegan things for them. And
Mm.
of course, our daughter always makes vegan things. If they get invited to a birthday party, she always sends vegan cupcakes and that kind of thing. So they realize that they eat different than everybody. And our grandson, it was probably about a year ago, he was about 5 then. They were reading some book, and in that book, the story talked about eating a chicken. And he was like, Mama, people don't really eat chickens, do they? And she said, Yeah, some people do. And he said, Well, that's just got to stop. He said, the chicken wants to live, Mama. So they are starting to make that connection as well. And we just have to be really careful with them because we don't want them to critique their friends and make their friends feel bad about the way that their friends are eating. So we're trying to teach compassion, and that, this is a choice and this is how we've chosen to eat. And, not everybody's going to eat like we do. And, you know,
It's
it's,
so
it's tough.
tricky. Yeah, it's so tricky because it's hilarious and also just deeply sad to me that we the ones who are making the compassionate sort of obvious choice to not hurt animals if we don't need to. We're the ones tiptoeing around not making other people feel bad about their choices. I remember I've told this story before, but I remember at a vegan event in New York City hearing a woman who was raising her kids vegan talk about her process of just educating them about the food system and at age appropriate levels. And she talked about taking them into a grocery store, into the meat section, and showing them a package of chicken drumsticks and saying to them, you know what chickens are, right? And they said, yes, of course. And she said, so if you were to take a chicken and chop off his head and pluck out all his feathers and drain out his blood and chop off the legs, that's what this is. And she said that the children were just staring at her in just shock. And finally they said, but why do they have that in a store that sells food? They just it was just completely apparent to them that we shouldn't be eating these things. We don't want to eat these things. And then another vegan mother who I met was talking about explaining to her 5-year-old son, we don't, this is what happens to animals. We don't do this, but this is what happens to animals. And she said that he looked at her and said, "Why doesn't someone call the police?" you know
Oh,
I know. Just, you're like, the kids get it, and yet our society conditions them out of that compassion and that tendency to ask questions. But that's just adorable, and so beautiful that your family has really embraced that way of living, and are incorporating it into so many facets, and that you've got so many opportunities to collaborate with each other as adults and on all these fun projects. I mean, that's just really nice. Has your family always been close this way?
yeah, I think, we have. And I think this just is one more thing that just draws us closer together to share this. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's beautiful and very inspiring. So thank you for sharing all of those family stories and personal moments. And I just love the journey that you and your husband are on with Nutmeg Notebook, which just seems to be getting bigger and just more audacious and just widespread. I've got just a couple
Yeah.
of questions for you before we wrap up. What's the best place
Sure.
for people to follow you, and what are some of the projects you'd like people to know about?
Of course. Well, if you like to watch videos, then check out Nutmeg Notebook on YouTube. So we have live videos as well as uploads. So we also have playlists there that you can click on. So if you want to know, how to make salads, or you want holiday meals, or what, you want to learn about weight loss, or why SOS free, that kind of thing. We have playlists, so you can check those out. And then I'm also on Facebook as Nutmeg Notebook, and also on Instagram as Nutmeg Notebook. And on Instagram and Facebook is more where I will share, like if we eat at a restaurant, what we got, or what we eat in a day, those kinds of things. And I'll also share recipes, or batch cooking. Like this morning, I posted the batch cooking that I did yesterday, just to show people. And so you can check those out. And then our blog, nutmegnotebook.com. And then we have 2 video courses that we created that have been very helpful for people. So when I first started following Dr. Joel Furman, one of the principles he teaches is to eat a big salad as one of your main meals every day. And so I adopted that principle in 2013, and I have been doing that as well as my husband, for 11 years. And so we have a whole course all about how to make chopped salads, because we started eating them, just a great big salad. And then we discovered if you chop it, it's so much easier to eat. So we have a beautiful chopped salad course. So you learn the who, what, where, and when of how to batch prep salads. I'm all about saving time in the kitchen.
Yeah.
And and so I batch prep 14 salads once a week, and they last for 7 days. So Tom and I each have a salad every day as one of our main meals. And of course, we add other things to it, beans and grains, or potatoes, different corn, different things to them to make them really hearty and delicious. And so people were always asking me how to do that. So we created a course for that. And then I'm also a batch cooker, and that's just making more food than you can eat in a day. And it just makes this lifestyle so much easier. So I make a lot of ingredients, grains, potatoes. Yesterday I fixed potatoes, 3 different kinds of potatoes, and made some barbecue tempeh, and just various things. Those go in the refrigerator, and then we combine them in different ways to
Mm.
create meals throughout the week. We eat a lot of burrito bowls or Buddha bowls, where, I say, if as long as I have a grain, a green, and a bean, I've got a meal. And so we have a whole course about batch cooking, how to organize your kitchen. I'm kind of a organized person, I guess. And so I teach people how to organize their pantry, their refrigerator, their kitchen cupboards, because if everything has a place, then it's much easier to do your batch cooking if you know exactly where to find things. And so an organized kitchen and pantry and a freezer and refrigerator is essential. And so I teach you how to do some batch cooking, what to do with that batch cooking. I think that book has, 50 recipes in it, so that when you batch prep all that stuff, I have colored pictures to show you simple, easy meals that you can make from your batch cooked foods. And then this past year, a lot of people were asking me, what do you cook for company? And so we created a ebook all about easy plant-based entertaining. And it's 10 of my favorite curated recipes put together as meals. And I even give you a guideline, what can be made ahead of time, what you need to make that day, and how you can pull that off. And so these are my family approved and requested menus. And I, hope that just makes it much easier for people, because people get intimidated entertaining people who don't eat like us. But trust me, my lasagna, people won't even know that it's a vegan lasagna. My mom actually made it and invited my brothers to come over for it. They didn't know it was vegan until she told them. I was like, you never should have told them that it was vegan. So anyway, we have those. Those are available at nutmegnotebook.com, and your viewers can save 30% if they use the code nutmeg30 at the checkout, and they can get a 30% discount on those classes.
Wonderful.
And we've gotten lots
Thank
of wonderful
you.
feedback about our classes.
They sound absolutely wonderful. Well, you reminded me of a question that I had. I'm curious, what's so special about your salads that was it your father who would only eat your salads?
Yeah, so I make really delicious salads, even if I do say so. I'm often asked to bring them to potlucks. We have, social groups here locally that we get together and we have potlucks. And so I make my salads. So chopping them makes them just incredibly more flavorful. It releases all the juices and all the veggies that you have in the salads. And we use a lot of different things in our salads. So arugula and I like kale because it's sturdy and it stands up really well. It is tough to chew, so once you chop it, then it's much easier to eat it. Lots of baby greens in it, broccoli, slaw, red cabbage, red onion, tomatoes, shredded carrots. All of that goes into a wood bowl. We chop it with a mezzaluna knife, and then we add lots of different things. So I have crunchy toppings that are really healthy. So I'll make, I love Mexican food. That's one of my favorites. So let's make a Mexican chopped salad. And I have a video on YouTube showing you how to make this one. You don't have to buy the course for that. And so I'll heat up. I like to make black beans in my Instant Pot, but you can use canned beans. It's okay. In the summertime, I'll use corn that I buy fresh and cook and cut it off the cob. But in the wintertime, frozen corn's great. I love utilizing frozen fruits and vegetables. They're easy. The prep has already been done for you. You can pull out as much as you need for that meal, so there's very little waste. So I'll heat up rice, corn, and beans with some salsa, and I'll add that to my salad. My salad, once I chop it, I'll add a little bit of lime juice to it, some chili powder. That just adds another layer of flavor. Then I like green onions. I'll buy those. I'll slice those when I do my batch cooking so that they're all ready to use every day. You can add olives to it if you want, some jalapeno if you like. I make a killer chipotle nacho cheese sauce, and I'll heat a little bit of that up, and I make the best taco salad. And so that goes over the top of it. And then in my air fryer once a week, I'll make some air fried tortilla strips, oil free, and they're delicious. Just take your corn tortillas and slice them into strips, put them in the air fryer, no oil on them. If you want, you can squeeze a little bit of lime juice on them. That kind of helps them have a little bit of a salty taste to them as well. And just air fry them until they're crispy. And how long is going to depend on how thick they are. If I have thin ones, it takes about 3 minutes. If they're a little bit thicker, it could take up to like 6 minutes. And then once they're cool, I'll just put them in an airtight container in my pantry. And then I take and sprinkle those over the top of my salad. Trust me, this rivals any taco salad that you can get in a restaurant. It's amazing.
It sounds amazing. It sounds amazing. How much? I mean, I've got just a
And
couple
that's just, yeah, and it's just one of them. I mean,
wow. How much? I mean, I've got just a couple more questions for you, but I'm just curious, how much time do you spend in the kitchen each week? I mean, it kind of sounds like you eat, breathe, and sleep in the kitchen. Maybe that's because you want to, but I'm curious about the time.
Well, it varies a lot. So initially, like yesterday, I spent about 2 hours in the kitchen just batch prepping food. I'm kind of off my schedule. I usually do that like on a Friday, but I was traveling last week. And so I'm a little off my schedule, but that's okay. I just roll with it. So I spent a couple hours in the kitchen yesterday. And so in 30 minutes, I can make the 14 salads. And then
Wow.
I always start by getting stuff started that is going to be hands off. So either a soup in the Instant Pot or potatoes in the oven, because once I get those going, then that's hands off, and that allows me time to batch prep my salads, make a salad dressing and some things that are going to go in the salads. And then usually on a daily basis, I don't spend a whole lot of time in the kitchen. I might spend about 15 minutes prepping my chopped salad because I already have all of the ingredients that are going to go in it are already ready in my refrigerator, or they're things that I have frozen because I'll make like a big batch of taco lentils and divide those up into half-cup servings and freeze those. And then I can just pop one of those out, So I'm not making the same things every week except for my salads and my starches. Other things I'm making as I need them. And that's what I teach you how to do in my batch cooking class as well. And then, dinner is super easy because I have soups that are frozen. It just depends. Like people always say, well, what do you eat in a day? Well, it depends. How active was I? What all did I do? Yesterday I had a Pilates class. I was really hungry after my Pilates class. So it varies from day to day. But then, and we're busy, we're helping getting our grandkids to all of their extracurricular activities. So tonight we have to get someone to soccer practice at 5:30. That's normally when we would be eating our dinner. So we will take our dinner with us and eat it at the park while she's having soccer practice. So, we just are very intentional, always looking at our schedule. What do we have going on this week? What do we have going on today? And how are we going to eat healthy and still do all the things that we want to do? So I don't spend a tremendous amount of time in the kitchen because we're very happy with simple meals. So something like a lasagna or a lentil shepherd's pie, something that's going to be more involved, I reserve that for when we're going to have company coming, and then I'll make the fancier food because we're really happy with burrito bowls and chopped salads and soup and a side salad.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, thank you so much. We'll include all the information on your cooking courses and on your YouTube channel in our show notes, and urge people to take advantage of that generous 30% discount by using the code Nutmeg30. So thank you so much, Tami. It's just been so interesting hearing about your story, and thank you for everything that you're doing for animals, human and non-human. The final question, which I ask all my guests, is there a particular word that for you sums up what being vegan is all about?
Oh, wow. I would say joyful. I would say that would be it, because you can feel joyful because the way you're eating makes you feel better. Improves your health. You're not causing harm to the environment, and you're not hurting animals, and that's that's joyful.
Oh, I love that. That's beautiful. And I think it makes a really good distinction between true joy, which is wholesome, and joyful, as opposed to pleasure, and that short-term
Yeah.
gratification, which may give us a hit in the moment, but doesn't serve us or doesn't serve anybody else in the long term. So that's beautiful. And I don't think anyone else has come up with that word. So so you've got uniqueness going for you as well.
Oh.
All right. Well, again, thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, thank you for having me on the show,
Oh,
and
my
thank you for
pleasure.
all that you're doing.
Yeah. Well, it's a pure pleasure, pure pleasure. And we close every episode by taking 30 seconds of silence for all the suffering animals, human and non-human, who desire, as we all do, safety, happiness, and the freedom to live out their lives without interference. So, Tami, I invite you to join me in 30 seconds of silence for the animals, and we'll conclude with the sound of the bell. Thank you, Tami, and thank you, Posse. See you next time. Until then, stay strong and stay true.